welcome everybody, and good morning to you. And thank you for joining me for another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. I am Tony Lynch. I am your host. And as always, we're going to have a great conversation today. Now, before we get started, if it's your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. And of course, this is for educational purposes only. Now, today's guest, she is an amazing, amazing person. But before I bring her out, I would like to just say that this is for educational purposes only. And do me a favor, help me welcome my guest. Awesome. Jessica, how you doing?
I am fabulous today. It's Friday.
Yes, it is. Oh, you know what? The day went by so fast. Normally, I'm like, happy Friday, everyone. You know, whatever. I totally forgot the day was Friday. Totally forgot.
I didn't.
Yeah, you know, we get to move it around so much, right? You know, we get to get busy, we get to having fun and all kinds of things. Time really flies by fast, right? So, you know, before we get into your story, tell people who you are and where you're from.
Yeah, so my name's Jessica. I am currently living in Delaware. Been here for about 20 years. First off, I am a mom of 4, so that is like my pride and joy, my children. Isabel, Blaze, Jake, and my angel, Steven, and a happily married wife of, 27 years. I don't know. I've lost track at this point. I own a gym, a boutique gym that serves really women in the area. Men are welcome. And I'm a speaker, author, and coach on all things wellness and healing through grief.
Awesome. Healing. I love that. We talked about it before, and I told you I was fascinated with it. Your story is so inspiring, so intriguing, especially all the things that you've had to go through in order to get there. Now, before you got into doing this work, I want you to tell the audience who you were and what led you into getting into this work.
Yeah. So prior to my loss, you mean, or?
Yeah, prior to the loss.
Yeah.
Leading up to it.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I grew up in a family of 5 in a small town in Medford, New Jersey. Went to Catholic school my whole life. So God and church was a big part of my upbringing. I'm very athletic, love to do anything with sports and running and anything that just keeps me active because that's how I am. Mm-hmm. And I got married at the age of 24, had my firstborn at the age of 25, Isabel, and she was a preemie. She was born 9 weeks early. Okay. So that was really, really a tough time for me, but you know, it's got what God gave us and we worked through it. And she's now going to be 25 next month. And she's following in my father's footsteps of a physician assistant. My dad was a doctor, so that's pretty cool. Nice. But yeah, I mean, I just was like an ordinary girl just trying to figure life out like so many of us. And I like to be active in the community. And my husband I was never military. I married a military man who owed 4 years to the Army. He did optometry school and then went into the Army. And so that lifestyle was a little different for me. Mm-hmm. I'm not growing up that way. So we moved to Maryland and I got pregnant with my second child, Steven. And Steven was not your ordinary baby. And I didn't have much to compare it to because Isabel was so preemie. But Steven wasn't really reaching his milestones. And I was just very concerned that something was wrong with him. And so I took him to a pediatric neurologist and he was diagnosed 2 weeks after September 11th, which we never forget that date, with a disease called spinal muscular atrophy. And it's a mouthful, but basically it's like Lou Gehrig's in infants. And the doctor told me to take him home and love him, that he wouldn't probably live to celebrate his first birthday. So really that's where my path kind of changed in life.
Wow. Now, as a parent, you get this news. What's going on through your mind at that moment?
I guess you feel like your world's over because you have all these dreams growing up. For me, I always wanted a big family. So to hear that your child, you know, and your children are supposed to outlive you, was going to pass and I was going to watch him suffer, was literally like the worst news I would ever receive in my life.
Yeah.
And I had never lost anyone close to me. So to be told that my child was going to pass it was just devastating. I mean, there's really no other words to put on that news. And, the world was already in chaos. My husband, I was worried he was going to be deployed, and my worries, suddenly shifted to something that was way larger than I could ever imagine.
Right. Now, you being around your husband, how did your husband react to the news as well? Because he's in the military, right? And I grew up in a military family. So, and I know that they're just, some of them are just like, you know what, I got to keep moving, right? I got to keep, from a wife's perspective, how did you see your husband?
Yeah. And I know, Tony, you work with men, so it's very different. My husband is my rock, and literally we leaned on each other through the whole process. We still do to this day, and we deal with grief very differently, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
He was very strong when I couldn't be, and vice versa. But I specifically remember a few times, like Stephen needed to get a feeding tube put in, and I literally was not strong enough to go and stay and watch that procedure and be in the hospital. And so he stepped up, where I don't think a lot of men could do that. He's always been just kind of my like rock. And so, it's interesting, when Stephen was diagnosed, people were like, do you know what the divorce rate is for couples that lose a child? And I was just very taken aback by that. Here I'm worrying about trying to make the most out of the short life that I had with Stephen. And, that was an interesting concept, but I have learned working with many couples over the years that in fact, that is true. It's the worst thing that any couple will face. And it's how you come together and talk and communicate that really makes a difference in, longevity of a marriage.
Yeah. Now, he stepped up to the plate, because I know I probably would have had a weak stomach, but like, oh, I don't know about this. Because I guess in a lot of ways, it's kind of hard to watch our children go through those things. And, it can be, in a lot of cases, very emotional, very challenging. So I'm glad that you had that. I'm glad that you had that rock, and vice versa. You guys were able to work through those moments. Now, how was it moving forward in his life?
You mean after he passed?
Before his passed. So, like, what?
So, I mean,
What
we
kind
quickly,
of kid was he?
yeah, we quickly, we figured out that based on the diagnosis and the prognosis, at this point, there was no treatment or cure for SMA, as it's known, or for some people, like, just to educate, it's kind of lumped into the muscular dystrophy family, considered an orphan disease. My husband and I are both carriers, and we happen to, have a child with it. It's a 1 in 4 chance every time I got pregnant that the baby could have a chance of having SMA. And so we were educated a lot on something that we never knew existed. And my dad was a doctor, never had heard of it. My family rallied around us, and we made the most out of the life that he had, and he truly was a gift. And it's, again, nothing that you ever want to go through as a parent. And I had a daughter, Isabel, at the time, who was only like not even 2. And so trying to manage the emotions that we would go through was challenging enough. But I guess the hard part was all the things as a parent I'd had to do, and my husband had to do, to care for Stephen, like cleaning his feeding tube, giving him oxygen, not being able to carry him because he was so fragile. All the things that you never expect to do, maybe for an aging parent, but not your child.
Right.
So we quickly learned how to do things that we weren't ever forecasted to do. But, that's life. We just don't know what's in store for us. And you either rise up to the occasion or you fall down to your knees, right? So that wasn't an option for me. We also started a nonprofit even before he passed to give us purpose. So we started a foundation, or I don't want to say a chapter of Cure SMA. And so it gave me purpose even through all of the pain that I knew was going to endure.
Nice. Now, what is your nonprofit? called?
So it's called Cure SMA. At the time, it was Families of SMA. And basically, it was just supporting other families. I mean, I got many calls from other parents going through what we went through. So supporting them through the process, helping them, raising money for a cure. There are 4 treatments to date, which is phenomenal. Just doing small fundraisers, big fundraisers, support, awareness, advocacy. That was just became part of my mission in life, something that I never heard of. And then all of a sudden, I'm kind of on the forefront of it.
Nice. I love it. And thank you for the work that you do. And you were saying that it's not, so is SMA, is it a very common thing, or is it something rare?
No, it's considered a rare genetic disease, although I think it's 1 in 11,000 live births are affected by SMA. So oftentimes babies might pass from it and you wouldn't even know, because now it's being tested. But back in, 2001, it was really not heard of, because the research wasn't there yet.
Right. Now, after his passing, how did it affect your relationship? And because now you have a husband, you have your children, and yourself. How did your family environment change? Your friends, family, relationships, things like that.
Yeah, Tony, you can probably relate to this. When you lose, especially a child, but any loss, you figure out quickly who your friends are. And I did. I mean, we did lose some friends because they didn't know how to support us. And, there's no right or wrong way to support someone going through grief. It's just offering your presence and your ear or a hug. But a lot of people are like, I feel like sometimes they think it's contagious because it's scary. And so we lost some friends. Again, we were in the military, so I didn't have a good support network there because we had just gotten there not even a year before. We have great family support. My family really rallied along. My one sister moved in with me for a little bit to help me when Stephen was sick. My in-laws were there all the time. Like, it really brought the family closer together. And I would say, I guess the big thing for me was kind of navigating after loss and feeling lost myself and feeling like a piece of me is missing. And then how do you carry on in a normal way when you don't know what that looks like or feels like anymore? And also the possible judgment from the outside on how I'm reacting, how I'm carrying on, what's the right way to react when you lose a child, because you don't know, there's no script for it, right? You just kind of, I think I said to you, like, you blindly just take one foot in front of the other. You feel like you're trying to pull yourself out of that darkness. And I shared with you too, the day after Stephen's funeral, I miscarried, and most people didn't even know I was pregnant. In fact, the week before he passed, I was speaking at the NIH about SMA, and I found out I was pregnant. And so it was just such a traumatic time that I just lost Stephen. And, I'm being rushed to the hospital the day after his funeral. So it was very scary. So just a lot of trauma in such a short amount of time, that at a young age, and just trying to figure it out and carry on with really not having a script or knowing there really isn't a right or wrong way to move through grief. You just do it. You do the best you can.
Yes. And you're absolutely right. And I often tell people, look, you got to do grief the way that you need to do grief, because it's such an individual thing. We both talked about this. There's no blueprint for this. There's no blueprint. I mean, we can have guidelines, and I think that's what we do on a day-to-day basis as grief practitioners, that we begin to perfect those guidelines to help people using the pillars of grief, right? And then we can develop certain programs for certain people to be able to follow, to help them somewhat navigate the world, but also giving them the freedom to where they can kind of like put it together the way that they need to. Because we both talked about it. What works for me is not going to work for everyone else. Not everybody is destined to do this work, right? They may wake up and go, you know what? I'm going to write a book about my experience, or maybe I'm going to do music behind it. Everybody's different. Some people maybe just go, you know what? I think I'm just going to travel the world and experience life. Some people not so lucky. We both understand that, and a lot of other people that are tuning in. For everyone who's tuning in on Instagram, thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section, and we'll be sure to answer those as we go. But yes, now, did your husband get immediately deployed? Because you're going through something traumatic directly after you just lost your child, right?
Yeah.
How is your husband and your children handling this right now?
Yeah. So fortunately, Isabel was, only 2. And, I'm sure she sensed it. We talk about it. She doesn't really have a great memory of it. But trying, it gave me purpose to keep getting up for her. Right. So as far as the deployment, we moved the following year. And in the interim, I got pregnant again and also lost another baby in utero. We moved to Fort Drum, New York. He got stationed there, which is one of the most deployable bases. And I never had trouble getting pregnant, Tony. Got pregnant again. And fortunately, we opted for genetic testing. And so I tested to see if our son Blaze was in fact affected, and he was not, thank God. But then we got news that Jay, in fact, would be deploying to Afghanistan. And this was before Blaze was born. So again, I remember just sitting in our bathtub and just sobbing, thinking like, I don't know about you, but after Stephen passed and then I lost 2 babies, I just felt like everyone around me was going to die. Like I was terrified of losing them or health crises. And I became I just was so overwhelmed with anxiety and fear. And so when I found out, and I knew it was going to come, I mean, after September 11th, like who wasn't getting deployed, right? And so I just remember like not even wanting to get out of the bathtub because I'm like, I know, like I'm going to move in with my parents for a little bit because that's what we decided to do. And I remember the morning that my water broke with Blaze. I was in New Jersey. My husband was getting ready to deploy out of Fort Drum and he hadn't left yet. And I was so angry because I'm like, he could be here with me, for the birth of Blaze. And of course, I'm worried something's going to be wrong with him. And so that was just another like traumatic. I'm like, how much can I handle? Right. And so my parents were with me for Blaze's birth. Jay was on the phone. And he wound up being able to come to meet Blaze before he deployed for 6 months. And so it was just, again, another very, like I was in true survival mode, like fearing that Blaze was going to pass. And I have Isabel, who's 3, and living with my parents and some trauma, like in the family environment was just an awful lot for me at that point. And again, it's just like, you just do what you have to do to get by and sometimes in life. And I leaned into my support network. And I was also planning another fundraiser for Cure SMA during that time. So it's like, a little crazy, but that gave me purpose again.
Right. And I can definitely respect that. And I can definitely relate to what you said about going into survival mode. I guess when I experienced my losses, because I lost my son before my mother, but my father and my brother was already gone. And I'd already experienced so much into my life. And I guess for me, that dark place that I was in, it was a place that I didn't care, right? I thought to myself, it doesn't get any worse than this, right? But I was wrong. Losing my mom shortly after that. And then after that, I just went, you know what? I really just don't care anymore. I really just don't. I was doing everything I could. You talk about survival mode, right? I was doing everything I could to disappear. There was, and there still is, pieces of me that are not there, and there are times when my grief hits and I'm a wanderer. I find myself just going off different places just to be alone. And no offense to anyone, but just like you said, Jessica, after you have so many people that leave you, you kind of you kind of don't expect people to be around, right? So I stopped being emotionally detached to individuals. Even now, because it's like, hey, if you're gonna leave, leave. It don't really bother me too much anymore, and I'm okay with that, right? I just enjoy my time with people. But as far as being emotionally attached, even now, I have a really hard time with that, and it's not surviving anymore. I'm living, I'm thriving. I'm enjoying the world, having the best human experience I possibly can, and I just get up every day and I get to do what I enjoy doing. I get to serve. And I guess that's when it comes down to it, I think we both can relate in that aspect. It's a purposeful journey. It's fulfilling. The people that we meet is they bring smiles to my face because when they allow us to be a part of their journey, whether if it's temporary, it's the moments that we spend with them. So I guess in a lot of ways, I enjoy moments now. I don't look at the long term or any. I just enjoy moments with people, and when those moments are gone, I just know how to step into the next moment. You know, which is a very unique skill trait that I've learned and picked up along the way. But now going back, going back a little bit, I just want you to touch on this. How is your husband? Because now he's about to get deployed. How is he carrying his grief with him as well? Because you're the wife. You're having to watch this as well as experience it yourself. And luckily, the little one she was still young. But now how did you make it in your marriage after that?
Yeah, I should ask Jay that question. Like I said, we've been married 27 years.
Mhm.
We've been through an awful lot together. And for him, I should ask him, I don't know, because a lot of guys don't talk about it, Tony. It's like they
Right.
bottle it up and they want to be strong for their spouse, or society teaches them to keep it bottled in, where really men need to be talking about it, because I feel like if they talked about it more, it would give more permission to those to talk about it. And I think I mentioned that to you when we first met,
Mhm.
is by me expressing how I feel, it gives others permission to say how they feel. And so he is just a really strong, stoic man. He's very matter of fact. Like, this is what I have to do. I'm serving my country. It really sucks that you're going to be doing this alone for a little bit. He was worried about me. I wound up hitting a breaking point about 2 months before he was supposed to come home. I was like not mentally in a good space. And I had to go see, a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist was like, "You're suicidal, basically, and your husband needs to come home." And
Right.
so the military brought him back home a little early, and I was very judged for that by the other military spouses, but it was what it was. I literally did not feel like I could carry on anymore. And I know you share with me your story of that breaking point.
Yeah.
And it's important for the audience to know, please ask for help. If you are feeling that at any point, you shouldn't wait till the breaking point. Talk to others, because you're not alone. And I feel like so many people feel so isolated in grief or trauma or whatever they're going through, and they feel like they need to shoulder it alone. But I share with you, like, everyone has a cross to bear. Let other people help you carry it. And again, my husband is just, I can't, he's an incredible man. God really gifted me with an amazing human being. And we just got through it, and we are very intentional about spending time together, remembering why we like each other. Like, we've really fostered a lot in our marriage. We do couples wellness workshops to help others through whatever they're going through in their own marriage.
Mhm.
So we're just very fortunate. I lucked out. I pulled a good straw.
See, and I love that, right? Some people aren't so fortunate. I know I wasn't. Um, I think as I was growing with my grief, there was a lot of things that I knew I had to do alone. And I guess people, the individual who was around me, didn't understand. And she happened to say some things, and I was just like, you know what, I can't do this. I cannot do, because if it's going to be like this, I knew that I wasn't going to rush it. First and foremost, I knew I wasn't going to rush it. And there was just a part of me that was starting to detach. And I just said, you know what? I need to be over here. I need to be alone for a while. Now, was it a good or a bad thing? That was both, right? It was definitely both, because although being alone taught me what I was going through, taught me about grief, it taught me how to heal later on. But in the beginning, it became a very dangerous, dark place. Like you said, Jessica, it was a dangerous, dark place. It was a place where my demons ran rampant, and they had a tendency of just saying, hey, you know what? Why not destroy the world? Why not destroy the world? And then it went from that to going, why are you still here? And I took that advice. I'm like, yeah, why am I still here? Right. But it comes from societal beliefs. Men are not emotional. Men are taught to not express what we're going through, and we're human beings, just like everyone else. But most of the time, this is the one thing that I hear the most. I don't want an emotional man, and I've often had to come back with the reply of, you're asking this individual to help regulate your emotions, but to be hard all the time. Now, if the relationship makes it, which a lot of times it will not, what you're saying to this person, I don't care about what you're going through. That individual turns around and go, well, since you don't care about what I go through, then you're not going to care how I handle you. You're asking me on one end. Now, here's the contradiction. On one hand, you're asking me to open up, to let you into my world, after the world has told me that's a huge no-no, right? So when I do, you shut me down. Now I not only have to go out into the world and survive this, but I also have to come home and survive you too. Now, when you cut off pieces of a person, of a man, when it comes down to that, comes down to it, you're pretty much telling him, no matter what, I agree with what society says. Although I want these things, I agree. So who are we to trust? We tend to go back out into the world and go, you know what? Here's the sad part. It's that we begin to plan an exit strategy.
Yep.
We're so nonchalant about it that, you know what I'm saying, we'll do it in front of you, just go, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. So there's two exit strategies. One, I'm moving out of the home if I live with you. Two, I'm getting away from the family and you, because you've just now let me know that I have no safe space. I have no place to go. So the only place that I can go, if I cannot provide for you, if I cannot live up to your expectations, because just like you said, Jessica, the world, we feel as if the world is judging us. We're so used to it that we just go, I give up. I throw my hands in the air. I give up. I don't want to do it. And that's where we find ourselves in trouble. I know I did. I found myself in trouble because I knew how to play chess with people. And that's a very dangerous mindset, because I can be very strategic in moving people around to get to where I need to get to without raising any red flags to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that most people are capable of doing these things. And that's where the planning started. And I was like, oh, okay. The last part of that is that there was no fear. I had no fear. And even now I have no fear of dying. I was empty. I'm
Yeah.
not empty anymore. I have empties. I have pieces missing that I still fill in with joy and laughter and servitude to other people, and with purpose, right? Um, but it's definitely a journey. It's definitely a journey. So that's the reason why I asked, because I was like, man, I wonder. And you've done the same thing when the person you're talking to is going, you're suicidal. A lot of times we slip into it and never even know.
Yeah. Just slow. It can be a slow process. You don't realize it's happening until you're like at rock bottom.
Yeah. Now and everybody's rock bottom is different too,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Everybody's rock bottom is different. Some people go into addiction, the mental health challenges that come along with it. We've talked about this on an in-depth level as well. Now, when did you decide to turn this thing around and begin to do the work that you're doing? Because that's one hell of a journey. Child loss is not something that I wish on anyone.
Yeah. I think for so long I was numb, Tony, and I'm sure anyone that loses a child or loses someone close to them or goes through a divorce, because loss is not just the loss of a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I was numb and I just kind of went through the motions for so long of I had 2 more healthy boys, thank God. I did all the mom things. I immersed myself in the school. I taught several fitness classes in the community. I did all the stuff. I was very involved in nonprofits, but I felt like I wasn't living. Like I was just going through the motions like a robot. And probably in my early 40s, I was just like, God, I feel like, life is flying. And I'm like, am I truly embracing all that there is for me to do? And I've always been a very empathetic, compassionate person in helping people and serving. And that's always been part of my mission. But I knew for me personally, there was more. And so I happened upon a John Maxwell certification. And I was like, I'm going to go to Florida. I don't know anyone. I'm going to go see who this John Maxwell person is. And it was around thousands of people that just were in that space of personal development. And I attended that. And then I started like a mastermind to help other women. And then I was like, I'm going to open a gym, like something I never thought I would do, because I want to help women, because part of my mission is, and I shared this with you, is that Stephen never had a choice how to live his life or take care of himself. And my dad, who was a doctor, I watched him care for everyone but himself. And so I had these 2 important males in my life, very different stories. I did a TEDx talk on this. And like, we're going through life and we're taking our health for granted a lot of times. And so I want to encourage specifically all people, but I work with women mostly, moms that have taken care of everyone else. And now they're like empty, like their tank is empty and depleted. And they're like, what's next for me? And so I opened a gym, and then I attended a Ziglar Legacy certification in Texas right before COVID, actually. So that was great timing, because it really gave me the tools I needed to kind of survive and thrive through that period. And I wrote my first book on grief through that period. And then I was like, oh, what's next, right? So then I became a grief movement coach. And so I'm constantly at this point in life where you feel like, oh, I'm 50, it's over. I'm like, no, like what's next for me to pour into me to then be able to pour into someone else.
Yeah.
And so it's just like a continuous journey. And I'm so excited to see what's next, and how I can serve others, because my journey, my storm has given me the tools to now say, okay, what can I do to help other people? Because other people are going to go through this, unfortunately. How can I support them? And so it's really about servant leadership and what legacy I want to leave for my family.
Right. And you said something. You wrote a book, right? Do you have a copy of your book, or what is your book called?
It's called, I have it right here. Let me grab it.
Okay.
By the way, I'm in my gym. You see the balls back there. I just
I
finished.
do. I was just about to say, you got
It's such
me
a cool
excited now,
vibe in
right?
here. I love it. This is my book. It's called Triumph Through the Tears, Finding Hope and Purpose Through Loss. And really, like, attending the Ziglar Legacy, we had to write goals. And I always wanted to share my journey of loss, but also what were the tools that helped me? How did I, grief and loss they're never ending until you pass. It carries with you. It's like you kind of have an elephant on your back all the time. It might be a little lighter, it might be heavier at times. But there's some things in the book that I shared. Movement was a big part of it. I ran a marathon in memory, Steve. And in fact, I ran like 7 or 8 and raised money for QSMA. And I wrote a chapter called The 5 Gifts that really have helped me. And I share with others that we have these 5 intrinsic gifts that we can use every day. And that is gratitude, being thankful for the littlest things, generosity, that is pouring into others. You know, it's sending a message to someone saying you're thinking of them. It's paying it forward in some small way each day can really make a difference in how you feel and change someone's life, really. Growth, you know, what we're doing today and sharing and learning from one another. Grit, you know, I love that word. That's like, you know, you gotta be strong. You gotta be resilient. You have to be anti-fragile. That's how you get through life. That's how you learn and how you grow. And then the last G, my last gift is grace. And that is forgiveness for yourself, for others. I call it practicing the pause. Like, you know, not reacting to something, giving yourself some space, not overcommitting and setting boundaries is important. So those 5 gifts really helped me to change my outlook on a daily basis. You know, how can I not be negative? How can I replace the negative to the positive thoughts? You know, what kind of seeds am I planting? So something I share, I ask my kids that every now and then, like, well, how did you use your 5 gifts today? It's a good, you know, good little conversation starter.
Yes. I love that. I definitely love that because that is truly inspiring. And where can people find your book?
So it's on Amazon. I also have it through my website, jessicamoyercoach.com, when I can share that. But yeah, it's on Amazon. And, you know, it's something that I did and I achieved it through COVID. And the ironic part is my father passed away. He was 62. He passed away on Good Friday. My dad was a very devout Catholic. And it was ironic because Good Friday that year was on March 21st. So it was so early. But the book came out on that day. And it was like full circle into what my dad had taught me in life. And, you know, I have very amazing parents. But the fact that it came out on that day was really special.
So I love that, man. I'm gonna have to get a signed copy of that.
I will send you one. I will send you one.
I'm looking forward to it because I love reading, right? And I can be able to like, I love that. I love that right there. Now, for those who are tuning in, explain to them what a grief movement coach is.
Yeah, so I happened upon, I know it's not probably not what people think, but I happened upon it again. You know, you kind of seek things out, and sometimes things will come to you when you're looking for it. Manifestation. And Paul Dennison is a man out of California that does grief yoga, and then he transitioned to grief movement. And basically, it's using breath, movement, and sound to work through your healing journey of grief. And I offer classes here maybe once every few months at my space, but it's really helping people to understand that all 3 of those tools can really help release the negative energy, the grief, the sorrow through breath, through movement, and through sound. And so it's a little odd for me, I'm not going to lie, because I'm not like a very loud person. And so when I first got certified and I'm trying to lead these classes and they want you to do like these big breaths and these big sounds, and I'm like, gosh, I feel weird. But it's also kind of cathartic. And I tweaked it to what works for me, like put my own spin on it. I use the 5 Gs through the workshop. So I've hosted probably about 10 workshops so far on grief healing, grief movement. Yeah.
Okay. So I love that because I always find any technique to help individuals grow and move through their grief in a very healthy way. I always find that very intriguing and fascinating because what we find out now with the last 4 years has been crazy, right? And how we've expanded in the grief field, the techniques that we've developed, the people who have come in and have just shined a light and said, hey, you know what? We're here now. And how they're engaging with community and helping others connect and understand their grief, just um, in the different areas. Everything, we look at it now. Things have definitely changed, right? But I am also, I love the movement aspect because, you know, I was studying for a little bit there about ancient traditions and how movement was an integral part of grieving, right? And music and just the traditions in different countries. I was always fascinated about it because they were like, you got to move grief through, and then it dawned on me the vibration, right?
Hmm.
You have to move grief out of your body because we both know that if grief sits there for quite some time, it can cause a variety of different ailments in your health.
Yes.
Eating healthy. And like, please feel free to elaborate. But eating healthy, exercise, dance, music, all of these different vibrations that hit the cells will actually help move the grief through the body. You
Yeah.
know, if you allow your body to do what it's naturally called to do. I, Tell me what you think about this. I believe that we naturally know how to grieve, but we've been taught in so many ways to suppress that natural instinct because it goes against what we've been taught.
Yeah.
And it can cause, and I think that's where when we find ourselves in those dark places, that's where it really causes the contradiction between the demons that we constantly fight on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. I feel like you kind of watch other people that have been through grief and like what's normal, what's not normal. Should I
Mhm.
react this way? And again, there literally is no right or wrong way. But I
Uh,
think the worst thing to do is to suppress it and not acknowledge it. Because I've seen that happen with so many people where they're ignoring it. And it's like literally the trauma is living in your body and creating disease and inflammation. And
mhm.
that's anything that's negative for your body. And so it's so important to find an outlet. For me, again, running was a big outlet for me at that time because it was, and in my book, I talk about like the shower was my safe space. That's where I cried. That's where I did my thinking because it was safe and people couldn't see me, right? Because that's another part of society that they don't, people are, you don't want to make someone uncomfortable, right? So you're going to hide it. And especially for men.
Yeah.
And so giving people that space to have that permission to just be, and I've seen it time and time again here, like the healing process and being okay with just letting it out is so significant. But you touched on something a little bit ago that I wanted to go back to is grief does harden you to some degree, Tony,
It does.
right?
Yeah.
Like you talked about that. And I've been really working on that myself lately because I find through all of what I've been through and all the loss and trauma that I am hardened to some degree with my emotions. And could be hormonal, but I don't think it is. I think it's really like the way I've dealt with. I kind of compartmentalize. I put things on shelves now, and I don't. I don't want to say I don't let myself get close to people because I do. I love on everyone, but I also have been through the worst. That now I'm like, I don't feel as much emotion as I feel like I should. And so I'm really working through that right now. And I know you as a grief coach, I'm curious to see what you have to say about that.
Yeah. To be honest, it's not that I'm hardened to it. I've come to see life for what it is.
Yeah.
Life never guarantees anything. It never says that we are supposed to live forever. It never
Yep.
says that we're exempt from certain things. We have a tendency of lying to ourselves and saying, this is the way that I would like my life to be, right? But when it doesn't happen that way, we go into emotional turmoil, right? So what I think about that is that when you can accept life on life's terms without the guarantees, without the promises and things like that, when things like this happen, have chosen not to focus on the end of your life, but celebrate the life that you have. Again, it goes back to something I said earlier, those moments. It's not that it doesn't affect me. I just rather celebrate your life than to
Yeah.
celebrate your death.
Yeah, I love
Right.
that. And I
Right.
feel like so many people are not embracing. Do you hear the train?
I do. I do.
Yeah,
I love
there's a train
it.
track that runs through here. Isn't that perfect timing?
That is perfect. I love it. I love it
I
because it tells
know.
people, hey, we are in real time right now.
Yeah, so it's funny because I do meditation classes here, and it's like so funny when the train will go by and the ladies are trying to focus because it's already hard enough for women to shut their brain off. But squirrel moment.
Screw.
That is squirrel. That's my brain. And I feel like if there's any advice I would give to people, it is to embrace what life has to offer and stop, living in the past. I have a little sign here that says, stop looking back. You're not going that way. You have to surrender to what's happened, focus on your gratitude, focus on the things that are working for you, and constantly learn and grow, and to embrace, because we are not guaranteed tomorrow. And sometimes I have to remind myself of this too. It's like, why am I worrying about the little things, right? When I'm so blessed with what I have and God will provide. I'm a very spiritual person, and I just need to focus on like the things that are truly important, right? Instead of worrying about all the outside noise.
And I think that's where the challenge comes in. People have a hard time of figuring out what's important and what's not, right? Because society, because life, because people, individuals teach us certain things. They teach us not to trust. Sometimes they teach us to love. Sometimes people would teach us what solidarity is. And sometimes people would teach us what loneliness is. These are all integral parts of our lives because when we have it happen so many times, I think we forget what we ask. And then we're devastated when we get those answers. Life cannot write out something that says this is what this looks like, right? It has to put you through some experiences
Yeah.
in order for you to grow, to have the wisdom, so you can have the best possible human experience in this world. And to be able to look at the things that we consider the most horrific things that we can ever experience.
Yeah.
And to come back and go, I'm going to use this experience and I'm going to find a smile.
Yep.
I'm going to find the sunshine even when it's snowing or raining outside, right? And that's what we call purpose. And through purpose, we find vision. And through vision, we find a journey and a process that we must go through and heal, right? And this is where the challenge comes in. A lot of people cannot determine healing because it hurts from grief. It's such a thin line. Now, when the healing grabs a hold of you, it hurts just as much as the loss. And a lot of times we're too afraid to explore that because it hurts, because it reveals the things that we've been hiding from, whether it's mental health, whether it's healing from unseen trauma, childhood trauma, narcissistic abuse, the addiction, especially, and these are just a small handful of things that we have to address in our healing in order for us to get to where we need to be. It's easier to put on a mask and go through the world and pretend that you're okay than it is to go through the world and say, I am in a better place than when I started.
Yeah.
So there's different variations. And I think that's why why we were born into the world, to help others determine that thin line that we call healing and grief. And we can implement certain tools, certain resources into there that people can actually, actionable strategies that people can grab onto and go, man, I may not need this right now, but I can put this in my tool belt because I don't know if I'm going to need it. And I think that's where an integral part of it. an integral role that we play in the niches that we have developed in this field. You
Yeah.
know, just like you said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You have to do grief the way that you do grief. And men, we have to learn how to express and not suppress. Now that is the challenge because um, just like our counterparts, we've been hurt too. We've been left alone. We've just gotten to a point to where if we think that's normal until we put them into a healthy environment, nature versus nature, right? So, nature would tell us, I have to go out into the world and provide. I have to protect. You know, I have to show that I'm still a suitable mate for those who are around me. I have to show that I am a protector to my children and those in my community. And in turn, we tell ourselves what I'm going through, what I'm feeling as an individual does not matter because no one cares. So we have to change the narrative around. And there's women out there as well that go through something similar. And I love having the conversations with them because it helps me to understand that there's so many similarities across the board that if we actually focus on the similarities, the doors will actually open up and we realize that our grieving process is really not that different.
Right.
Some different variations, but it depends on the individual and how you have been nurtured in the world. And so that's why we write the books. That's why we do the programs. That's why we develop these techniques to help and things like that. Tell me what you think about that, Jessica.
No, I agree with all that you've said. And again, it's just opening that conversation and creating space for people to feel safe, especially if it's someone close to you, like your partner, or a child. Again, it's like just allowing it to flow instead of constantly suppressing it. And I feel like that's where the trouble can happen for a lot of people, where they'll turn to different vices that aren't necessarily good for them. I mean, I'm fortunate that I didn't turn to alcohol or drugs. That just wasn't on my radar, but a lot of people do, cure the pain that way.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it's going to come back to haunt you. So it's just finding someone that you feel safe with, even if it's a therapist, someone you don't know, a grief counselor, whoever it is, just to be able to talk.
Yeah. And I think that's where the challenge becomes, because I know I did reach out to a therapist. Well, actually, the church I was going to at the time. And look, I respect everybody in their respective fields, things like that. But what I needed was someone who can relate on a level because I wanted to know how they did it.
Yep.
The problem I found was, although the individual was a wonderful, wonderful person, they had no experience.
Yes.
So I posed one question when they came to me. It's like, hey, I'm such and such. I would love to sit down and talk with you. I posed that one question. How do you know what I'm experiencing? Her reply to me was, which is why I closed off, and I'm glad that I did, because it took me down that road of learning and expanding my knowledge to be able to help individuals. But I had to go through the process. I had to go through the journey. She said, I've never lost a child before, but I've read plenty of books and I believe I can help you. I said, ma'am, I appreciate you, but this is something different. I can see if it was something, that wasn't as deep as this.
Yeah.
And I walked away because a couple of different things. I left the church because I felt like I was being judged all the time. Look at that guy, Tony. He's the one who lost everybody. Look at him. What is he going to do next, right? My friends who had kids stopped bringing their kids around. So again, a very lonely road. Mm-hmm. Very, very lonely. I got used to the loneliness. Friends in general, like you said, Jessica, they know how to talk to us. And they walked away. I'm glad they did it early on instead of waiting. But the one person Now here's where the camel broke the back, and I just said, you know what? I'm gonna go find me a cave somewhere. My son's mom. She decided to be the narcissist that she was, and proceeded to take little jabs at me because she understood the relationship I have with my son. And I thought to myself, wow, if the one person that's supposed to be rocking with me at this moment throughout all of this, because we have a joint understanding in this relationship that we've just lost. If she's willing to do this, I wonder who else is willing to do something to me, right? But I learned. I learned to forgive. I learned to grow. I learned to heal. So, although all of these things were going on, I appreciated it because it did put me in a dark place. It helped me understand what that darkness really meant. And so I was able to go in and extract information over a period of time. After I was able to come out of it, I sometimes have to go back in and go, look, I missed something. But I'm not afraid of the darkness anymore. The darkness has been my ally. And it's like in the darkness, I connect more to my father. I connect more to the emotional aspect from people that I encounter on a day-to-day basis. The thing is that I don't get caught up there. And that's what I want to give people. Like, it's okay to be there for temporary, but you have to know how to come back out, right?
Yeah.
And you have to emerge a different person, but you have the choice of being bitter or better.
Yep.
So I love it when people can come back out and go, you know what? I am so sick and tired of this. Okay, so if you're sick and tired, let's see what we can do. And we begin to work on the plan of growing and healing. But most importantly, the memories that you have that made you smile.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not the moment that changed your life, because you're forever going to be changed. The world will never see this. You will never see the world the same ever again. But we can incorporate those memories so you can start to get to a place where you're okay in the world. And then from there, we can get you to a place to where you're doing better than yesterday. And after a while, you're living.
Yep.
You're still living, you still got the emptiness in you, but you're living a little bit more because now you have a plan of how you would like to see your life fulfilled. Just a little bit more. I appreciate it. Like you said, the grace that comes along with that, of the people that we can touch.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jessica, I'm gonna let you elaborate on that, and then we're going to wrap it up because I know you got things to do, and I love that, Jim. See, you got me all excited over here. I'm like, you know what, Jessica, I'm coming here. I'm going to throw balls at each other because dodgeball is a thing. Okay, dodgeball is a thing. Take that.
I know. No, I mean, all that you've said, I can relate to. And again, like I talk about the darkness in my book, and there wouldn't be light without darkness. So you have to go through storms in your life. You have to have dark times, or you wouldn't appreciate all of the good, right? It's like the ebony and ivory, like it's the ebbs and flows of life. And so it's learning that there will be tough times, but you're a strong individual. You can do it. You need ask for help. And honestly, my friends who have lost children, I've had a few friends recently who've lost children tragically, and there's nothing I can say to change how they're feeling. There's no pain I can take away. And the only thing that heals is time. And that's all. Like when someone comes to me and like, it's just time. You can't speed it up. It's like, you gotta walk through that storm. You gotta walk through the darkness. It gets easier. You'll heal. You won't, it's always going to be with you though. And, I feel very blessed that I had Stephen in my life because I've learned so much from his little life. No, not that I ever would wish that on anyone, nor myself, but, there's just being present for people when they're going through hard times, listening, allowing space for individuals, and reaching out. Just, I'm always here for people if they want to reach out to me. I know you are, Tony. To me, it's just like, how can I help? What can I do to help you? How can I listen to you? How can I hold you?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Now, before I let you go, two things. The first one, if you could leave the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
Well, because I talk about the importance of self-care, and I actually have a chapter in my book about like things you can do, like self-care through grief, is we only get one life. We are a gift. And if you're neglecting your gift or taking advantage of it or not prioritizing, start now. Because if you're not well, and if people have seen people suffer, right? And a lot of times it's unnecessary because they've neglected themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So take care of yourself. Like, you're important to other people. I always say your job is, you're always replaceable in your job if you're a workaholic, but you're not replaceable to the people that love you and care about you. And so choose one thing one thing that can make you healthier, whether it's drinking more water, getting more movement, getting more sleep, not holding all your emotions in, whatever it is. Pick something that's so small and so attainable that it's so easy that you can move on and kind of build. Because that's really what I preach to the women that I work with is, you're important. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you certainly shouldn't be taking care of others. You can't pour from an empty cup, but you got to put your life vest on first. And so whatever it is that you're going through in life, still try to show up for yourself. Be your own hero or shero.
That's deep. I love what you just said right there. You can't show up for others if you can't take care of yourself, man. Oh, that is deep. In such a very wonderful way, and something that people can take with them. Take care of yourself first so you can take care of others, Now, where can people find you?
I'm on Facebook, Jessica Smith Moyer, Instagram, Moyer.Jessica, JessicaMoyerCoach.com. Yeah, that's pretty much how you can find me. If people send me a private message too, I always give my phone number out. I mean, you can put it in anyway, so why not? Yeah.
I definitely understand. Definitely understand. Yeah, Jessica, thank you for being on the show today. We're going to talk a little bit because I do want a copy of your book because I love to read. And from some amazing person, thank you for sharing your story and your journey in the process of becoming who you are today. And thank you for the work that you do. For everyone who is tuned in today, thank you for tuning in. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, and as well as YouTube. If you guys haven't already, do me a favor, head over to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. But you will be able to see previous episodes and be able to stay tuned for the episodes that are up and coming. We have so many more amazing guests, just like Jessica, coming about, and you guys don't want to miss another episode. Now, this is going to conclude this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. Jessica, thank you again for being on the show, being such a wonderful, wonderful guest. And I look forward to speaking with you even more. So you guys keep an eye out. Go check her out on her social medias, but also go check out her book as well. Now, with that being said, thank you guys for your support. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Have a great day. Peace.
Thanks, Tony.